All right, and welcome back. So today we are going to be talking about multi-step equations here. Before we talked about one-step equations, then we talked about two-step equations, and now we're going to be talking about multi-step. And all multi-step means is just more than two. So it could be three-step equations, it could be five-step equations, it could be seven, it could be 10, it could be 20-step. It just means that we have more than two steps are needed in order to solve this equation and to get a solution to this equation. So without further ado, let's begin. So let's talk about some general steps and guidelines that we are going to use in order to solve multi-step equations. Just like before, for two-step equations, we have a general procedure. For multi-step, we're going to have a general procedure as well. So first, we're going to simplify each side of the equal sign. So we need to simplify before we start bringing things over on other sides and crossing things out and canceling, and by moving stuff from the left-hand side to the right-hand side and the right-hand side to the left-hand side. The first thing we need to do is simplify each side of that equal sign first. After we're fully simplified, then we're going to undo our addition and subtraction, and then we're going to undo our multiplication and division. Our goal is, after we simplify this, were our steps for solving two-step equations. So our goal is to end up with a two-step equation. So if we end up with a two-step equation, that means we are on the path of success here. Okay, so our goal again is to figure out a way to get it into a two-step equation. Sometimes it might turn into a one-step, but our goal for multi-step equations is to turn it into a two-step equation. Let's put this to an example. Let me get rid of this. So let's say we have this equation written down here, and please jot this down as well. You're going to notice that they're color-coded, and that's for a reason. We have negative 3x plus 7 plus 6x is equal to negative 11. Well, one of the things that I notice here is there are different colors, and that might be important for me to pay attention to. I see that negative 3x and 6x, those are going to be like terms. So I'm going to box in my like terms. Notice how I'm including the signs that are in front of each term. So that negative 3x, I boxed in that negative sign. That 6x, I included that plus sign because that tells me it's positive. Well, I can simplify the left-hand side of the equal sign by combining those like terms. And negative 3x plus 6x gives me positive 3x. And I'm going to bring everything else down. So now I have 3x plus 7 is equal to negative 11. Well, I can't combine 3x and 7. Those are not like terms. Negative 11 is all by its lonesome, so there's nothing to simplify over there. So now we have a two-step equation, which is perfect. So the first thing we want to do is I'm going to box in that term with the variable, just like we did for two-step. That way I know I'm not touching that 3x until it's all alone on its own side of the equal sign. I have that plus 7. I'm going to remove that 7 by subtracting. I want this to turn to 0. By subtracting 7, that will turn into 0, and it cancels out. We're now left with 3x is equal to negative 11 minus 7 more, which means I'm at negative 18. I undid my addition and subtraction. Now I have to undo my multiplication and division. I have 3 times x, so I have to divide both sides by 3. In doing so, we get negative 18 divided by 3. I see it's a negative divided by a positive, which yields a negative. 18 divided by 3 is 6. Therefore, my final answer is going to be x is equal to negative 6. Awesome. I want you to try out this problem on your own, at least the first step. Let's see if we can identify that first step. So without further ado, please try and at least identify what you think the first step is going to be with this multi-step equation. Remember, we want to simplify each side first, and then we want to start undoing things. So think about if we can simplify the left-hand side first. So what I notice when I see this problem is I see parentheses. I say, okay, we have x minus 1. Well, I can't do anything with x minus 1 because those are not like terms. So we move on in our order of operations. Do we have any exponents here? I don't think so. So now we move on to multiplication or division, whichever one comes first. And I see that we have this 4 very, very close to our set of parentheses here, which tells me I'm going to use a distributive property to distribute inside here. I'm going to circle that minus 1. That way visually I know I'm multiplying 4 by negative 1. So when I do that, I have 4 times x, which is 4x. 4 times negative 1, which is minus 4, or negative 4, and we write it as minus 4. I'm going to drop everything else down. So now we're left with 6x plus 4x minus 4 is equal to 14. Can I combine any like terms here? Yeah, I can. I have 6x positive 4x. Those are like terms. I can add 6x and 4x, and I get 10x. I now drop everything else down. So I have 10x minus 4 is equal to 14. And now I have a two-step equation because I cannot combine 10x minus 4. Those are not like terms. I don't want to touch this 10x, so I'm going to box it in. So that means I do want to remove that minus 4. I want this to turn into 0, and I'm at negative 4, so I have to add 4. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So now we're left with 10x is equal to 14 plus 4, which is 18. I need to divide both sides by 10 to undo that multiplication. In doing so, I get x is equal to 18 over 10. Now you think we might be done here. Some people are going to say, oh, you can turn it into a decimal, mixed number. You can, but we want to leave it as an improper fraction. If you get a fraction, you can leave it as a fraction because we're going to be working with a lot of fractions this year. But I do see that I can do one more step. I'm going to bring this over the side up here. So we had x is equal to 18 over 10. I notice that both of those numbers are even numbers. And I know all even numbers are divisible by a factor of 2. So since I have a fraction, I want to be able to see if I can simplify that fraction. Well, I can divide both of these by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So now I'm at x is equal to 9 over 5. Can I simplify 9 over 5 at all? I don't think so. So our final answer becomes x is equal to 9 over 5. Awesome, folks. Awesome. Let's talk about this, what we call a special case, because we're going to want to simplify both sides first before we start to undo things, right? But let's see what we notice about this setup. We have m minus 3 in our numerator, all divided by 5 is equal to 8. Well, I can't just add 3 to both sides. I can't do that, right? Because I have negative 3 in my numerator, and it's not its own term. This whole thing is a term. The whole fraction is one term. So I can't just add 3. What I need to do is I need to cancel out that fraction. And to do so, we're going to multiply by 5. When we multiply by 5, well, 5 divided by 5 is 1. So now we're left with our numerator, m minus 3. And now 8 times 5 is 40. And now we have a one-step equation. I add 3 to both sides. to get that m all by itself, and we get that m is equal to 43. Awesome. And again, we multiplied by 5 to cancel out the fraction to be able to access that variable, to access that minus 3. So since it was its own fraction and everything included was a fraction, we have to multiply it by our denominator. Awesome. We also have one more special case. And I'm actually going to clone this because there's technically 2 ways to solve this problem. And we're going to go through both ways. Let's separate with a line. Okay, let's focus on the left-hand side here. We have -2 times a quantity, x minus 7 is equal to 10. What we can do first is we can definitely distribute this -2 inside. So -2 times x is -2x. -2 times -7 is positive 14. And that's equal to 10. That should have been in black. Let's go back and change it. It's equal to 10. And now we have a 2-step equation. We want to undo that adding of 14. So we're going to subtract both sides by 14. This goes to 0. And we're left with -2x is equal to 10 minus 14, which is -4. We're going to divide both sides by -2. And we get that x is equal to positive 2. That's one way to solve it. And if you're comfortable solving it that way by using the distributive property, by all means, go for it. But there is another way. So let's look over on the right-hand side. It's the same exact problem, but what if I change it to this? -2x is equal to 10. How would we solve that problem? Well, we would divide both sides by -2 because it's -2 times the quantity of x is equal to 10. So we would technically divide by -2 on both sides, right? Well, we can apply that example problem to our problem. I have -2 times the quantity of x minus 7. And as we showed on the left-hand side, we multiplied all inside of that. So we actually can divide by -2 if we wanted to. So now we get x minus 7 is equal to -5. And now we have a 1-step equation. I want to add 7 to both sides. They cancel out and go to 0. And now we're left with x is equal to -5 plus 7, which should be 2. Which guess what? It's the same value. So whichever way you want to solve these kinds of problems, by all means, you can distribute and then simplify. If you want to divide first by what you would have distributed, go for it. But notice that I can only divide because there's only the operation of multiplication. If there was another term all by itself that was not associated with that -2, then we couldn't do this. So personally, I like to do the left-hand side because I know that I'm just going to simplify. It does take an extra step, but it's okay. It's only one extra step. Well, technically it's 2 here because we ended up with a 2-step compared to a 1-step. But it's really only one additional step, and then it's solving the equation. So I like distributing, but if you feel like you want to just divide out, by all means, be my guest. All right. I want you to try this problem. Please jot down this problem, solve it, and then proceed when you are ready to hear the answer and see it done. All right, so if you're listening to my voice, that means that you have attempted this problem and you want to see the solution and how we get that solution. Well, I notice I have a multi-step equation here, so I want to simplify each side first, and then I'm going to solve. I notice I have some like terms. I have positive 4y and positive 3y. I can combine them to get positive 7y, and I'm positive about that. Don't ask me why. Minus 14 is now equal to 28. I'm going to add 14 to both sides to cancel that out and get my term with the variable all by itself. What I do to one side, I do to the other. Now we're left with 7y is equal to the meaning of life, 42. Now we divide by 7 on both sides, and we get that y is equal to positive 6. Great job, folks. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You're doing so well with this. I'm super duper proud of you. Keep up the great work.